All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about it, but what about something more formal? I think some of us came from, every Friday we couldn't go out with friends, and we definitely couldn't go over to friends who had family devotions because that was family time, and sometimes it was just playing the Monopoly because there were no other. Like Settlers of Catan hadn't been invented yet, and so we didn't understand what board games could be. But am I expected to be a terrible singer but lead hymn singing? Do I sit down with my 3-year-old and read table talk and really dig into the word? What am I supposed to do? First of all, am I supposed to do family devotional? Can't I just, hey, don't hit your kid or don't hit your brother because Jesus says love our enemies. So there, I've done family devotional. That's all I need to do, right? Like, I don't need anything formal. I definitely don't need to sing. It says make a joyful noise. It doesn't say I have to be in tune. So I'm good with not sitting there. But what am I supposed to do at home to be a good leader? Because ultimately, tongue in cheek aside, I want to be a good leader, or I want to be led well. If there are any women in the audience, or you're a young adult who wants to be led in a family, to have these conversations where you can open up a devotional, get through 3 lines, but have a half-hour conversation on things that took you down the conversation route. Even with a 7 and 5-year-old, a couple days ago with a table talk, I was like 3 lines left. It's always 3 lines left, and we're having great discussion. I'm like, the completionist in me wants to read those 3 lines and move on, but my goodness, I'm not going to stop my kids from talking about Jesus perfecting our salvation. Mm-hmm. So what can I do? How can I lead well or be led well in whatever capacity that the audience is in?
Yeah, I think here's an analogy. Every once in a while, I get the stupid impulse to start running again. I was a runner in high school. That's what I did, and I do enjoy it. I love it when I get into the habit. But every time, what I'll try and do is I will go out and do a 4-mile run first day. And it's a stupid idea. It's so stupid because I'm a lot fatter today than I was back then. And it's been a long time since I was that skinny. And then what ends up happening is after I run my 4 miles and I feel terrible, I will not run again for the next year. So I think sometimes, like when we talk about family devotions or family worship, the temptation is always to do too much. I'll say this, first of all, I think you have to do something. Those who fail to plan are planning to fail. And it's kind of like the same thing with prayer. I always say, like, people are always like, yeah, well, I mean, I don't have to pick a time to pray. I'll just pray throughout the day. And I'm like, but you won't. You won't, though. Unless you pick a time to pray, you won't pray throughout the day. The more you actually have a scheduled time to pray, the more you're going to find yourself throughout the day just praying on a lark. The same thing with family devotions and family discipleship. If you don't have a scheduled time to do family worship, which is what I would prefer to the terminology. Devotion is an attitude of the heart. It's not a thing you do. That's just a technical linguistic problem. Family worship.
We don't care about definitions around here, okay?
But like family worship, that actually is, I think you need to have some time of that. I would say the same thing with, like, if a church is trying to do, like, sometimes these churches will be like, hey, we're going to go away from Sunday worship. We're just going to do discipleship. Well, how are you meeting the people you're discipling? How are you getting FaceTime with them? How are they to understand that you are a dependable person to ask questions to? How are you getting to like all of these things is built upon what we do on Sunday morning. The fact that I get text messages like I just did from students asking me questions is because I have a weekly day to get FaceTime with them and show that I am trustworthy with the word and that I care for them, that I see them, and there's FaceTime. I think the same thing with your kids. If there's not a FaceTime where you establish the habit of we worship God in this family, we talk about God in this family, then it's not going to happen throughout the day. And so the thing that, but I always like, again, I always say the big thing is don't run 4 miles the first time you're out. Do something small. Like my kids are a lot of my kids are very young. And so we basically just every meal we'll sing a few hymns. We will we'll either do a catechism or read a little bit out of the Bible, and that's it while they're eating. And so they're eating, they're paying attention, they're listening, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And then meal's over, put your plate in the sink or in the garbage if we're being lazy, using plastic paper plates as we're doing
normal
these days.
Normal, hopefully.
But like what, and then you go, and then actually we started having in my family, and we started prioritizing having a private prayer and quiet time after lunch. And so, but we do that every meal, and it's like, so they're coming to the table anyway. They have to sit there for the whole meal. So let's do some singing, let's do some songs, do some Bible. We don't do all that much though. We don't do a ton. But just enough that like later on, when they see something on the TV, when I see an ad or something on TV that is immoral, I can say, hey, what does that one catechism we just read say? Okay, so what does that mean for that? Or like we're talking about our neighbors who don't know Jesus and being like, okay, so, what did your catechism say about that? Is there a way to salvation outside of faith in Christ? No. And what does the Bible say about even like the Spirit of God needing to regenerate their hearts when we're talking about how hard it is to convince our neighbors to become Christians? Well, we just need to be praying for them because the Spirit of God is the only one who's going to change their hearts ultimately. And so we've got something to build upon as we're talking about these things. And so having a set aside time is good, but that's also what we failed at early on with family devotions is we try to do too much. I tried to do too much, and as a result, it failed. And so be reasonable with what you can accomplish, especially with what age your kids are at, what age groups you have. But start young. I wish we had started singing a song at honestly, it's gotten to the point where it's like wherever we go, our kids are like, wait, are we going to sing before dinner? Yeah, let's sing a song before dinner. Even if it's just the doxology or the Gloria Patri, we'll do those. And even at my parents' house or my wife's parents' house, and we'll just it's kind of just become an expectation. This is part of their life. Is we sing, we pray, we read the Bible, and that's all there is. Elements wise that is necessary for worship. Sing, pray, read the Bible. And if you're not a very good singer, and if your wife needs to lead it, that's fine. If you're part of being a leader is also sometimes delegating responsibilities. And if your wife's a better singer than you are, then do that. If your wife reads better than you do, then have her read the Bible and you just comment on it and you teach about it or something, whatever, yes, I believe that men should be leading the house and they should be leading the family worship whenever they can, whenever they're there. But you can delegate the meals that you're not there. I'm not there for lunch, so my wife takes care of it. And so I tell her what I want to happen. I tell her that I want catechisms to be a priority, and I want I want the story of the Bible to be a priority more than digging into certain texts. Like I want them to have a broad picture of the Bible and in both senses, what it teaches, which is what catechisms do, and in the broad story, which is what children's Bibles do. Really good. In fact, I think more adult Christians need to be reading children's Bibles, good children's Bibles. There's some ones that I don't like, but yeah, I think it's fine to delegate. If you're not a singer, your wife is. If neither of you are singers, then it's true that the Bible does say, make a joyful noise to the Lord, and not a beautiful one, the joyful one.
It's definitely one that I always put in my back pocket. So
that's right.
Especially on Sundays after I've worked 12 hours.
Hey, there's this one guy, and it's not a joke. It's actually a real thing that a lot of us, some of us on the music team, we're like, there's a guy in our church named Greg who cannot carry a tune in a bucket. but he is joyful as all get out. And so we're like that. He is probably the most beautiful singer in our church because he is like, he loves the Lord, and it shows in the way he sings. And it doesn't matter that it's the same note held all the way through. It's beautiful. And so, yeah.
Well, and two, that's one that I tell people when we talk ecclesiastical on, how do I find a good church? I go, check the church website, check the doctrinal statements, but go there and see if the men sing. And I think that tells you a lot more than children's programs or how much the collection is on the back. But if the men are singing, I've noticed are the places that I feel the most home at as far as what a church is supposed to feel like.
Yeah. Don't be a sucker for the programs, the children's programs and the youth programs. If they are focused on, I'll even go a little bit broader than what you're saying. If they're focused on the men, then that's a solid church. If they have a solid men's ministry, even if it's not like, even if it's just like a prayer breakfast once a month, but you're like, it looks like the men in this church are serious and growing. That's a good church. And that's going to be a church that's going to sustain you long-term. Won't be a flash in the pan. It's going to be long-term beneficial discipleship.